Welcome to our next session. I personally am very excited about this speaker. Marius Ivanovas is the Chief Revenue Officer at Httpool, which is a major global partner and an extension of the biggest digital platforms, including Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, and many, many others. Marius has a wealth of know-how, expertise, and access for fintech companies that are interested in accelerating their sustained growth. So today he's going to be sharing his industry insights on large-scale international projects, on leading geographically dispersed teams, large-scale technology initiatives, and partnerships across more than 50 markets. So let's welcome him to the stage.
Hey, thanks for the intro. Hi everyone. I really like the private setting. It's like really gives you closer to the ground. So, as mentioned, my name is Marius, and today I will brief you through the Twitter as a product and how you can use Twitter for the fintech and what's happening there around. So let's go. So if you're thinking about the Twitter and how you're using that, you're most often thinking through your personal experience when you're following the scores of the games, when you're following the news, when you're jumping into some certain conversations and using that as a user. But if you zoom out of that a bit, then Twitter becomes actually the conversational layer of the internet, because majority of the conversations happening there, and that's why it's so important for any vertical, any industry, and finance is not the exception here. So you can use Twitter for finance in many creative ways. So for example, you can ask the questions and get the feedback. You can share your opinion and compare Twitter, your experience with other social media platforms. You can also just, freely share what you think about that, and just to let your followers or other people within your network. You can also share other opinions, why you think Twitter is very useful, and then other Twitter users can pick up your ideas, and then we can go broadly, because Twitter is actually not really social media platform. It's more even news or conversational platform. And why it's so? Because Twitter, it's open. So you don't need to friend with no one. You're just picking up the topic, or you're just picking up the people which you would like to follow, and you're just doing that. So that's probably the really big difference if you're comparing that to such platforms as a Facebook, for instance. All right? So it's completely open. It's really conversational. There is also a lot of conversation happening about the finance. So within last year, there was more than 110 million tweets related to finance. It's, if you're calculating, is around 3 tweets per second. And it's also constantly growing. So last year, it grew more than 25%. And the conversation is booming, and it's also, of course, related with everything what's happening in the finance market, to everything what's happening with the fintech, crypto, trading, forex, and things like this. And of course, COVID impacted and boosted the usage as well. But the fact is obvious. The conversation is there, is constantly evolving. And where is conversation, there are people, and where the people, there, you shall be there. You shall be there as a person, you shall be there as a brand. So what it makes Twitter money for finance? So first of all, of course, the community of the finance experts. So you can follow, and you can probably find any topic within any vertical, and you can follow any person, small or big. This is really depending on your preference. The second one is all the journalists and also all the news outlets. Of course, they are on Twitter. They have specially curated content only for Twitter, and there is a huge amount of the news on Twitter, because news are breaking on the Twitter first. Last but not least, this is of course that Twitter as a product is built for you to make it easier to follow those people, to follow those news, to follow those topics. Then if you're looking forward, then there are three key segments, finance segments on Twitter. So first of all, this is the finance and personal finance, where you can get a lot of suggestions, a lot of opinions, which will help you, to improve your personal finance discipline, or get any useful insights, and also anything what's important for you as a person, how to manage your personal finance. Then the second, those are the finance hobbyists, and I think that as many of you are here, so those are the people who are interested into trading, into forex, into crypto, and interested into finance in more professional way. Last but not least is the finance professionals. Because, as I mentioned, Twitter, first of all, this is the best and probably the fastest news source. So that's why finance professionals, they really love Twitter, and they're using that hardly. If you're looking to the personal finance, you can make a list of the people which you would like to follow. You can follow the topics, you can follow the hashtags, and it makes so easy, but also so valuable. And if you're looking to the amount of people on Twitter, who are talking about the finance, it's again constantly growing. So there are close to 10 million users who are constantly tweeting about the finance, and it's constantly growing as well. So this is why it becomes bigger and bigger every year, and last year it grew 15%, only last year. If you're looking to the personal finance, it's actually the Twitter probably the one of those places where you can get any finance advice as a person completely free of charge, and it's really very valuable. So someone told that Twitter is actually the best book for the suggestions and advices, and it's actually true. If you're building your interest, if you're building their interest scope properly, then you really can get a lot of valuable information, not only some kind of empty noise, what's very often happening within other social media platforms. And of course, there is conversation where the users, also brands are there as well. So here you can see a couple of examples. For example, the BuzzFeed, they have Money Talk series, and where they're talking about the personal finance. Then also Chase and Prudential, they also trying to sort of capitalize and adjust their messages and get people interested into personal finance as well. Is not different with the finance hobbyists as well, because there is a huge community of people who are actively discussing, tweeting, looking for advice, suggesting the opinion on everything what's happening around the crypto trading, forex market, CFDs, and the things about all this event is today. And I think that is probably the biggest and the largest community talking about that. And you really can find those people who are really influential, and you can get a lot of feedback, and most important, the news on what's happening in the markets. Because you probably know better than me that the news and breaking news, quick news, this is one of the most important things to make decisions in regards to trading. This slide is actually a very good example how conversation actually correlates with what's happening in the real world. On this screen, you see how Bitcoin trade volume and the conversation around Bitcoin is correlating. And the example here is the March, when there was lowest trading point for the Bitcoin. And it also impacted huge sell-offs of the Bitcoin. And what's happening afterwards, so you see immediately the spike of the conversation volumes around the Bitcoin keyword. And what it means that people started actually ask for the advice, what to do, what will happen, and if you see to the trend, so it's almost all the time. You see something changes, and immediately the conversation then spiking inside the Twitter. So the correlation is obvious here. Twitter understands how finance is important, how many users are there. Therefore, they rolled out even the special hashtag called Cashtag. And if you're following the hashtags, then you can follow much easier, much simpler around the specific finance topics related to Twitter, related to finance. This example is perfectly illustrating how the finance professionals are using Twitter, and also what kind of real-life impact you can make and you can have by only single tweet. So this tweet, what it means that Trump tweeted about the delayed conversations around the second stimulus check, and what's happened, and then immediately you see the drop into the market. So it happened after the tweet, and it's kind of a bit of opposite way, that sometimes with single tweet from the influential person, you can have a huge impact on what's happening in the world. And I think that Trump used the whole big story around that, how he was firing the people on Twitter and things like this. But I mean, the finance market, they also reacting quite fast. And that's actually the reason why many financial experts and financial professionals, they're using Twitter so much. Because as I mentioned, the news are happening on Twitter first, and for the professionals, they want to get those news. They want to participate into conversation, and Twitter as a platform is probably the best place and the best way to do that. Another great example is Bloomberg terminal. Why Bloomberg did so deep integration with Twitter, just again, to get the news without any traction immediately. They even have overlapping the news from Twitter with kind of trading things around that. You have all those profiles there, you have real-time feeds, etc., just because once you're working with the trading, you would like to get this news immediately, and you would like to get it from the source. And that's actually one of the reasons why there are so many media outlets out there. They have a separate teams, they have separate strategies, they have a separately curated content prepared only for Twitter, because that's the place where news are happening. A couple of examples now at the end from me how financial brands actually using Twitter. So in this example, you can see the JP Morgan, and the idea here that what they realized that Fed meetings and content around that, this is something what might be very interesting for their target audience. So what they did, they partnered with Bloomberg to bring this content onto Twitter, and then they added their brand in front of that. So this one is called pre-roll or pre-roll sponsorship, where you can take any content and then you can put your advertising, your pre-roll in front of that. And what they did, and actually what the result of that, that when you're having the quality content, you're showing that for the audience which matters, and then you properly connecting that to the brand. Another example, and I like this example because it was really well thought through campaign of Bank of America and Davos. And what they did, so they did a couple of steps. So first of all, they launched, sorry, I went too far. Okay, this one. So they launched the crowdsourced polls. And when they ask at what kind of topic you are interested in Davos. So what they're getting here, they're getting people engagement, all right? Once you're getting the people engagement here, because you're talking about the topics which matters, on the big event which matters, and you're talking from your brand. So any engagement, of course, making the snowball effect, and then you're getting more and more free awareness connected to the proper topic which matters to your brand. Then the second step, what they did, there is a format called subscription tweet. So where you can subscribe for some certain topic, and it works in the similar way as email marketing. If I'm subscribing, an example here, that you can choose the topic which you like to get informed, so then you are going in some sort of internal database, and then you can send the messages for those people in a way you want. So what Bank of America was doing, they were sending the daily updates, for some certain topics about what's happening in Davos. And then again, the result, what they achieved here is the same, that you're talking about the things which matters to the audience, which already engage. So it's kind of the warm audience, and then you are putting your brand in front of that. They also had the crew and the team who worked on the ground, who was producing the real-time news on the ground, and they used a live event feature of the Twitter and just feeding this event straight there. And the final step, so this is one of the most exciting Twitter advertisement position called Spotlight Trend, when they had one-day spotlight and the spotlight works in a way that it's 24 hours takeover in some certain market. So if you're opening the Twitter app, the first thing what you will be seeing, it will be this specific message. And what they did it in the United States, and then they had huge brand awareness with the message, what was important. And finally, the results was really huge because they succeeded to get into top 8 trending topics and trending handle. And because it's done by the algorithms, it also shows that, and it's global, by the way, so it shows how big awareness and how big engagement they had within the event and how visible was their brand. So it's really proved that it makes sense to do such integrated campaigns. And the final example from me is a company called Trading 212. So it is trading app, and the campaign was mainly in US. And we actually were very successful with this one, making the campaign more successful in terms of the user acquisition cost and in terms of scale, even as Google or Facebook. And how it was done, that the client capitalized on the market news, the volatility of the market, also proper targeting with the proper message sequencing, and then at the end, the Twitter was the best working channel from them. So thanks a lot for your time in this 15 minutes. And the main takeaway here is that when it comes to finance, so Twitter is money. If you like, just scan the barcode and you can be there, right? Thank you.